I got this little cardboard box at the craft store and painted it purple. And now I'm going to take Purple Pearl Primo Accents and make some mica shift tiles to put on this box. The lid was pretty snug when I got it, and after I painted it, it's really snug. So what I'll do to help slick that back up is to put Renaissance wax on it, but I'll wait to do that until after the tiles go on. So the first thing we will need to do is to condition the clay. Alrighty, I've conditioned it and rolled it out 20 times to align the mica particles. I'm going to use this leaf texture sheet and then also roll it. Oopsie, there you go. I rolled it right down onto the glass, so the glass will hold on to it while I shave the texture off to see what we can get in the way of a mica shift pattern. The purple makes a mica shift that's not quite as obvious as, say, the metallics, but it does have a very subtle mica shift. I've turned this lamp on so that I can see my work a little better. If this doesn't do what we want it to, we have a couple of options. We can either go with a strictly textured finish, or we can mix more mica into it in the form of either perfect pearls or Pearl X or some compatible metallic powder. So we'll test it out, see how it looks, and if we're not impressed, we'll decide what to do next. It's very understated, and I think what I need to do is to use a card or a piece of paper to burnish this. Yes, it's very understated, but it's there. I have this little box of Young Living Thieves wipes, and I didn't get them closed properly, so they dried out, but that alcohol dampens them right back up, and it makes it smell good in here. So we'll pick this up there. Yeah, you can see a little bit of mica shift in there. It shifts a little to the blue, between blue and red. So I think what I want to do, this lid is just about exactly a ½ inch deep. So I'm going to cut some strips a ½ inch wide and make little tiles of them, similar to this. This is actually textured with resin on it, but I'm going to make some little tiles similar to this to put around the edge of the lid, and then we'll decide what we want to do with the top and the sides. We'll see about tiles for the side. Okay, the sides are just a tiny bit over an inch. So I think what I will do is have the sides of the box be done up in mica shift and actually have the top textured. So now what I would like to do is make a textured piece for the top. So what I'll do first is get my clay ready, conditioned and at the appropriate width, and then cut the texture and then cut the shape. Okay, there's the widest setting. Okay, that's big enough. And we're still using this leaf pattern. Now there's a couple things we can do in terms of coloring this texture. We can heavily powder the whole thing with mica powder, and then after it comes out of the oven, sand the top off so that the color remains down in the veins and leaves. The other thing would be to just mica the very tops of the pattern. And I think what I'd like to do here is kind of a combination of those ideas. So we'll have this part mica'd on the very tippy top, and this part mica'd heavily and then sand off when it comes out of the oven. And the other thing is we're going to resin these. I think that process will add quite a bit of dimensionality to the project. But of course we're all experimenting together here, so we'll see how it turns out. See, I want to leave most of that texture intact and then just sand the very top of the mica powder off, leaving the gold in the veins. That's the plan anyway. Okay, now we'll take our little box, set it in here. When we add the tiles to the side of the box, it's going to add some width. And I find that I like it better if the top kind of comes out over these tiles. Otherwise, it looks almost like an afterthought. So I want to try to cut this top a little bit bigger than the actual box. Get this out of our way. Maybe I could cut this with my craft knife. Oh yeah, that's going to be interesting. Now I'm not going to worry about how sharp this edge is because we're going to resin this, so it's going to dome the top of it a bit, similar to this. What I might do though is I might mica powder around the edge. Let's see if we can do that. Yeah, that's kind of working. So this will be really interesting when we sand this top layer off and it's still in the veins, but we also still have mica powder on the outside edge. I think that's going to be really pretty. All right, we actually have 3 tiles, 2 with sides, and we'll intersperse these gold ones with the plainer ones, and then these go around the top, and then it goes on the top. But first, they must be baked. These are all going to be resined before they go on the box, and I'll be back when they're baked. Alrighty, our pieces are out of the oven, and I'm removing them from the tiles. These pieces that are going to go on the sides can go right onto the resining mat. I still have a little bit of work I want to do on this heart. Okay, these are for the bottom part of the box, and then these are for the top part, like so. I know from prior experience that this mat takes about 15 cc's of resin altogether. The mica shift on the purple is not very distinct in this form. You can kind of see it a little if you get it at an angle. I'm thinking / hoping will be more evident once we get the resin on it, but we'll see. You know, some of this is an experiment for me as well. Okay. Now this tile can go down here, and this is heart. We did a pretty good job of getting the sides covered with mica powder, and that's baked on. And on this one, I want to leave the gold on the top, but I want to buff off the top on this part, leaving it in the veins. So let's see how that looks. Okay, then we'll dampen it. I have that bottle of alcohol, this little spray bottle of alcohol, and I've also got one with water in it. So we'll dampen this one with water and just gently wipe it off. You know, that does just about exactly what I wanted it to. Now, I will have to wait for it to dry before I resin it. But yeah, that's the effect. Gold with purple veins and purple with gold veins. This is a cosmetic brush cleaning silicone mat that I found at Bed Bath & Beyond. We'll go ahead and mix up some resin to start covering these, and then we'll do that one after. I always wear gloves when I resin, because no matter how careful you are, you're going to get some of that sticky stuff on your hands. Okay, and I've got this little mixer here. I believe I got that from Resin Obsession. I'll look to be sure and post a link. And currently my favorite resin is Resin Obsession's Super Clear. It's a 2-to-1 ratio, so you have to get a little bit mathy here. How I do that, so we have 2 parts resin to 1 part hardener. So I go on here and I figure how much we're going to need. So I'm going to use 10 milliliters of resin and 5 milliliters of hardener, and I mark my mixing cup with a magic marker, and then come in and put the resin in there, keeping a close and careful eye on the marks on the side of the cup. Can you see? Okay, good. As you pour the resin in, it kind of mounds up in the middle, so you need to let it settle out into the cup. If you put the resin in here all the way to the line without letting it settle out, you're actually going to have more resin than you intended. And the hazard of that is that you have to have enough hardener to harden the resin. Okay, I think that's it right there for resin. And here comes the hardener. I know from sad experience that if you don't get your mix right, if you don't get enough hardener in your resin, it won't harden. It's very annoying. 2 minutes. There we go. So we'll just mix this up for 2 minutes. Be sure and scrape the sides of your cup. Scrape your mixing tool occasionally. If you don't happen to have a timer, one way to tell is that initially, as you begin to combine your resin and your hardener, it becomes a little cloudy. And as you continue to mix and get it thoroughly mixed, then that cloudiness changes back to clear. So I'll stir, I'll scrape the sides, I'll scrape my tool. You want to be sure that you have thoroughly combined your parts. Because the other thing that can happen is if you don't get your resin thoroughly mixed, then you'll have a portion of the resin in the cup that is not properly mixed. You know, if you haven't been scraping the sides of your measuring cup, but then when you go to pour it, you do scrape the sides, then you're using resin that hasn't been thoroughly combined. And some of it will possibly be not enough hardener in it, and it'll stay sticky and gummy, and nobody likes that. And there's our 2 minutes. Now we could let this settle, let some of the bubbles rise to the top, but I tell you what, with this particular resin, I find that it lets go of the bubbles pretty well. We shouldn't have too severe of an issue of bubbles in the resin with this. What I'll do is go ahead and resin all these little tiles, and if there's enough, then I'll resin the heart. And by the time I get done with these, most of the bubbles will have already released. But I can always take the torch after them just to be sure, and I'll show you how I do that too. Doesn't take much, just a drop or two on each one of these little tiles. And you see I'm using a pick to hold the tile down so it doesn't scoot all over the place, so that I can get it covered. I use the tool to pull the resin all the way out to the edge of the tile. And I still got some goo on my hands. Alrighty, here comes the torch. Some of these little tiles, the resin is already pulling away from the edges, even though I drew it all the way out to the edge. Oh well, that's what happens. So anyway, we're going to let these cure for a minimum of 12 hours, and it is currently 7:20 in the evening. So we're going to let these cure until tomorrow, and then I'll show you what they look like. So these have been curing overnight, and now I'm going to put them on the box. The glue I use is this Crafter's Pick Ultimate Water-Based Super Glue, it's called. And it's very thick, very thick. So I store it upside down and lay it on its side when I'm gluing. I think I'll put these on first, and as heavily as I resined them, the resin still crawled away from the edges, but I'm going to use them anyway. And we'll alternate the ones with the gold and the ones not with the gold. And probably around where the round parts go, I should use the smaller ones. I got these wooden picks. They're a little bit bigger than toothpicks. I got them at a craft store in a bag. I believe they're also available online from someplace like Amazon. I can put a link in the description if you'd like. Okay, we actually do need to use these smaller ones here. Okay. What I'm going to do here is just make them flush to the bottom, and then the lid can come rest on the tops of the tiles. Sometimes the resin will drip over, leaving a rough place on the back. Easy solution to that is to just take the craft knife and cut it off. And how I'm going to do that is set it next to this self-healing mat. Here we go. Okay. Okay. Okay, now we're going to let these dry. And here we are with the finished product. I think it came out pretty nicely. You can kind of get a little hint of that mica shift in the purple pearl, the way it shifts from pink to blue to gold. And then on the top here, where we used the mica powders to highlight the texture, I think it came out pretty nicely. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. And if you like this kind of video, let me know, and I'll make more of them. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the comment section below. And your comments are always welcome. Feel free to share this video and consider subscribing if you haven't already. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.